Good evening. Welcome to the October 8th edition of the Derry Cooperative School District Board meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. So let's hit the minutes. So I will take a motion to accept the public minutes from September 9th and let's do it individually, September 9th.
So moved.
First by Michael, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes 6-0. I'll take a motion to accept the public minutes from 9/24.
So moved.
Second.
First by Michael, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. I'll take a motion to accept the non-public minutes from August 27th.
So moved.
First by Michael, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. And finally, I'll take a motion to accept the non-public minutes from September 24th.
So moved.
All right. We have first by Michael, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes 6-0. All right. So let's welcome South Range presentation and volunteer recognition. Welcome, guys.
You guys are efficient. Oh, you want a chair, don't you? One of my only jobs was to bring a chair
Bring the
up,
chair.
Mrs. Cremoni said. I didn't do it. Good evening. Thank you for having us. It's really, I think it's pretty cool that you guys give us the opportunity to showcase some of the things that we do in our building, so really appreciate the time. We do want to begin with recognizing a really special adult to our school community and recognize her as our outstanding volunteer, Mrs. Angelina Chrisimer. We'd like to recognize her as a South Range School outstanding volunteer. We're going to invite Angelina up here so we can talk about her.
Angelina really likes to be the center of attention, if you can't tell. So upon stepping into our school, Angelina immediately became a big part of our school community, which was awesome. Our kindergarten orientation in 2023, she expressed interest in being a part of our PTA, a big part of our PTA. And at that same time, she expressed the interest in our open PTA president position. So she's there for her child's kindergarten orientation, and she's ready to step into be our PTA president. We thought that was amazing, but there are some bylaws that you have to be a member for a certain amount of time before you can become on the executive board. And we talked to her about that. She pulled out her phone and she said, but look, I became a member in February. So 6 months prior to her child being at our school, she was a PTA member. So she immediately and since then has been so greatly involved in so many aspects of our school community. She's, without hesitation, jumps in and helps out with anything that we could possibly need. She's always looking for new opportunities for our students, our staff, and anything she can do to make our school a better community. So we really appreciate everything that you have done for us.
Yeah, I know we're just talking about you, embarrassing you, but Angelina is a really special person, and the amount of positive impacts that she has made, not only for our students and our staff, but our families, has just been tremendous. And we're really fortunate, not only at South Range School, but as a Derry School District, to have her as part of our community. So that's why we are recognizing Mrs. Angelina Chrisimer as our school's outstanding volunteer. So thank you very much, Angelina.
A certificate here for you. It says Certificate of Appreciation, Volunteers in Education, Angelina Chrisimer, for valued service at South Range Elementary School.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Thank you.
much for everything you do. We
Thank you.
greatly appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Angelina. So along with our fantastic volunteers in our PTA, we have such an amazing group of students and staff at South Range. And we're pretty excited to welcome a group of students here to talk about some of the things that we're doing at school. And we seem to, over the last few years, seem to be getting kind of that first line, that early October school board meeting, South Range is going. So what we did last year, we talked a little bit about our opening school community meeting that we had, and we talked about kind of our hopes and dreams. If you guys remember, we actually asked you all to share your hopes and dreams. So this year, during our opening school meeting, we talked about, I'm not even going to talk about it because the kids are going to talk about it. I'll give you a little teaser. The kids are going to talk about their DNA. That's it.
All right, so we're going to have our students come up here, and Jacob and Aviana, if you want to come up and sit here, and everybody else can kind of stand behind them. Sure, no, they're okay. So you can talk in here, okay? So Mr. Olson just told them that we were talking about our DNA, but can you explain to them a little bit what that means? They're probably a little confused why we're working on DNA at our all-school meeting.
Our dreams are what we wonder about, what we want to do, or who we want to be.
Our needs are something we want to get better at or we might not be good at yet.
Our abilities are something we are really good at and can teach others.
So they talked about their DNA, right? Their dreams, their needs, and their abilities, and what those mean to them. So we talked a little bit at our all-school meeting about the importance of recognizing those things that we are really good at, and we work hard at, and that we can help others with. But it's also really important to recognize those things that we might not be so good at yet, and that we need to work on, and we might need help from others. So they're going to talk a little bit about their DNA, their dreams, their needs and abilities, and then we'll have others come up and do that. So nice and loud into that microphone, all right?
My name is Jacob Norton, and this is my DNA. My dream is I want to become a professional soccer player. My need is I need to practice playing soccer. My ability is math and soccer.
My name is Aviana and this is my DNA. My dreams are to be a famous horse rider, to be a vet, or work at a zoo. My needs are I need to get better at horse riding. My abilities are horse riding, ballet, and gymnastics.
My name is Lenora. My name is Lenora, and this is my DNA. My dreams are I want to be a famous author and illustrator. My needs are I need my family in my house, and my abilities are I'm really good at any kind of art.
My name is Olivia. My dreams is I want to improve at reading. My needs is I need a friendship. My abilities is I can do math.
My name is Lucas, and my dream is I want to improve at math. My needs is I need hugs and support, and my abilities is I am good at school.
My name is Caroline, and this is my DNA. My dream. My name is Caroline, and this is my DNA. My dream is to go into the military.
My needs. I need to talk to somebody when I am sad. My abilities. I am a good friend, a good helper, and a good listener.
My name is Kara, and this is my DNA. My dream is to be a singer and a YouTuber. I need music, fun, and recess. My abilities is be able to do gymnastics, math, reading, and art.
My name is Madison, and this is my DNA. My dreams are to be a veterinarian. My needs are to go to school to like animals and to get a master's degree. And my abilities are math, softball, and writing.
So we want to thank all of them for coming and sharing that and being so brave, because it's not easy to get up here. And I know we talked a little bit earlier about how you get a little nervous coming up here. But so thank you to all of you for coming out and sharing your DNA, your dreams, your needs, and abilities. We are going to give you an assignment. We're not going to ask you to do it today like we did last time, but feel free to fill this out. If you'd like to put a little picture on there. If not, I'm sure we can get pictures of you, and we'd be happy to hang these in our building where we have the rest of them. So you can send these back to our school and get those back to us. We pass those out. Any questions for us?
More of a comment than a question. It's still tough to be up here every other week for us, so awesome job to all of you guys. Very impressed with the presentations, and it's great to hear all of the dreams, needs, and the abilities. So thanks for coming in and sharing with us.
Now, did you guys volunteer to come tonight, or how did that all shake out?
Voluntold.
I want to thank Principal Matt Olson, Assistant Principal Michelle Cremoni, the wonderful teaching staff over at South Range. All of you kids, let's give them another round of applause. This is not easy to do. And a thank you to all of our family members who came to support. And this is what it's all about. And we love to hear about your dreams and your needs and your abilities. And I look forward to seeing all of you the next time I visit. Nice job, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You.
Yeah, we'll take a quick 5-minute break and give guys opportunity to shuffle out. Thank you again for showing up tonight.
Nice. She said it's all up here. Short bullet points is good, right? Close it.
All right, so let's continue on here. So next up, we have delegations and individuals. Any Derry resident that wants to come up, get their 3 minutes, just give your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Hello. Good evening. My name's Jennifer Thoreau, 33 Village Brook Lane. I hope everybody's doing well. The reason I came here tonight is really twofold. First, I'd like for the school board to consider, I know there'll be discussion tonight around a repair bond for the March ballot. I really strongly encourage the board to consider a bond that lands around $25 million. I think anything short of that is very short-sighted, given the need for the repairs in the schools and the districts. And that we'll continue to have these conversations down the road, and they won't get easier. They'll only become more costly. The second reason I came here tonight is because I'm a parent to 2 children who go to East Derry Memorial Elementary School. And I have a son that's going to be at East Derry next year, so I'll have 3 children at EDMES. And I'm a very busy mom. I have conversations all the time with parents at EDMES, and though my scope of those conversations are really only with that group of parents, I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are my age or younger who are disenfranchised voters, who aren't coming out to the polls in March, and who really need to be engaged to get this bond passed. And so I'm really hoping that the school board can unify behind a bond, get out in a very intentional, purposeful, and targeted way to young parents and young families in this town who are already at Derry schools and who are up and coming in Derry schools, like Nutfield School, for example. My son's in pre-K there this year. Those parents, it's not pretty. They don't know what's going on in these schools, even less so than the EDMES parents. And so it's really important to have those targeted conversations. I'm hoping if there's a good voter turnout, there won't be any problem passing a bond. But we really need to engage that group. And I'm really hopeful that the school board will be able to become unified behind a bond, get out and have those purposeful, intentional, targeted conversations beyond the soft outreach of social media, which just isn't going to do it, and mobilize the voters to the polls. Hopeful that you all will be able to do that. And that's really it. So thank you for your consideration.
Good evening. Whoops. Can you hear me? All right. Good evening. I'm going to talk about the bond too. A little history. I know back in August we had something that was about $48 million. Oh, Richard Tripp, 44 Wyndham Road. I'm sorry. I was so anxious to talk to you, I forgot to give you my name. Anyhow, it's nice to see that we're down from 48 to 25 tonight, for a discussion, I was talking with somebody the other day, and they made mention that it's interesting what the board's strategy on getting the bond is, It seems it's a all or nothing proposal that you're wanting to give the voters in March. I would recommend that you go with 2 bonds. I did the math and looked at, you've got high priority items, you've got priority items, and then you've got some items that you seem to have, forgotten about. Well, the highest priority items would be East Derry, Barca. Well, East Derry, $715,000. Barca's nothing. Hood is $800,000. Grinnell is $700,000. South Range is like 4.9, I think. And West Running Brook is like 3.3. So that comes out to about 10.4. But then, if you subtract 10.4 from the 25.2, I think that's the items that are priorities, but not extreme priorities, and that comes out to about 14.8. So I would suggest that you have one bond that is the highest priority items, which is 10.4, and then you have another bond which is 14.8. So you give the voters a little bit of a menu to pick on. Because if you go with 25.2 and they go, no, that's going to be a difficult time. You're not going to have any money to do repairs. The other thing is, I was going through some things that you guys have discussed, and it's not on this current bond. I remember when you were talking about the roof drains at West Running Brook. I think there's 32 of those that need to be repaired. Did you have any plans of doing those repairs in the near term? Because I would think that if one of those would fail, it would be interesting. The doors.
Richard, can I get a motion to give Richard more time?
Okay, I'm almost done.
All right.
Right. I noticed on the other schools, you were doing interior and exterior door repairs or replacements. The doors aren't on the South Range section. So I don't know whether that was just an oversight or you figured that the doors at South Range don't need to be fixed. The last thing that is either unknown or admitted is you still have Derry Village, right? And looking at the LaValle Brensinger report, it showed Derry Village needing a roof. So do you figure on doing a roof repair at Derry Village sometime? So there's, like I said, there's like 3 items that aren't on the current list to be repaired. The last thing I want to say is, the bond, the repair bond, I think, if you look at what the funding the school is going to be asking for in March, the school bond, the repair bond is going to be a fairly good piece of it. But you've still got two other components. You've still got the teacher's contract, and that's going to be, I don't know. And you got the operating budget. I don't know what that's going to be, but last year was $103 million. So I would recommend that you don't make too big an ask like you did last year. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Tom Carden, 2 Cunningham Drive. I went home after the last meeting and I came across a whole bunch of different proposals. One of them was the Behringer report. I came across a couple of them here that were in 2022, and I got one. This was a pretty good one here. This was July 15th. There's a couple of those. There's about 6 or 7 of them here. My point of all this is that, there's been a lot of information that's been out there, and it's been out there for a long time. I've been coming to these meetings for the past 4 months to really to see what's going to happen with these facilities. And, you know, I hope this meeting doesn't go like all the rest of them have gone, where it's just, you know, the can gets kicked down the road and nothing gets done. So I hope that changes. And, you know, this is the latest one. I like this. I like what you've done here. I like this proposal. And, you know, all this, you know, the one thing I was thinking about is, you know, people have to put all this stuff together. So every time this gets kicked back and probably lays on Jane's desk, right? She smiles, yeah. And, you know, you've got some pretty knowledgeable, dedicated people that have put this stuff together for you. I mean, this is what they do for you. I mean, you guys are basically the board members of a $100 million corporation with $100 million in assets, with, you know, the needs to put $40 million into the project. And, you know, you have to depend on those people to give you the right information. And I think they're giving you the right information. So, you know, I know you've been hoping to get a 7-0 vote. I don't think that's going to happen, but I mean, it would be nice. But, you know, regardless, I hope this thing starts to get put to bed. I think Katie had a pretty good idea in one of the meetings to do a PR program for this. I don't know how time is going to be going on this, you know, if you're going to be able to get something together before the vote. Hopefully you do. I think you probably need that. But, you know, and the other thing, you know, I keep in mind is, you know, that all of you are probably very well aware of, that we have a $20 million bond coming up from the fire department. I guess we don't have to pay that much for the science building that's coming in at Pinkerton. I don't like that smile. Well, anyway, so we got that. You know, the police station, another $10 million. You got your $40 million. And, you know, you have teacher contracts coming up too. So I think what's happening, you're going to have a perfect storm here for the taxpayers of Derry. And, you know, I hope you can get this put through. Thank you very much. Right on time.
Okay, thank you guys for coming up and speaking. I'll close delegation individuals and move on to Anthony's update for Pinkerton.
Very short update today. I've said a lot over the past couple of meetings, but Pinkerton did win the MAC plaque. We have retained it. There's still the cheer competition in November, but right now I believe it's 6-1, 7-1, something like that. So we did pretty good. This Thursday, October 10th, is freshman reception. It's free dance for freshmen at Pinkerton. That'll be from 6 to 8:30. And then Astros United Color Run, which is to promote mental health awareness. That will be Sunday, October 13th at 11 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Anthony?
I think there's a craft fair coming up as well. Yes, I don't have the date on that, though.
It's the 19th.
All right, welcome our newest member from Next Charter School. We have Elsie Kyle.
Hi, so my name's Elsie. This is my first year representing, so I'm a little nervous, but as of right now, we just got a $500,000 grant to expand on the school a little bit more. We also have just gotten a new hydroponic system, which can grow vegetables very, very fast. Our school is project-based, so right now, some of the projects that we've been doing are really heavily based around STEM subjects. Like, one of the classes that I'm taking is for a policy on AI, and that has been very interesting. We're also doing some classes where we're learning how to make machinery, like bicycle-powered. I'm doing a bicycle-powered pottery wheel, but we're just learning how to power things using bicycle power. So, yeah, not a lot going on at Next as of right now, but pretty much what I have to say. Wanted to keep it short and sweet today.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions for Elsie? All right, well, thank you guys very much. Elsie, you're welcome to stay if you'd like for the rest of the meeting. If not, have a good night. Anthony usually stays, but up to you. All right, thank you. All right, next we have the superintendent search update. So we've been working with G&D pretty closely here. We have a few things I emailed the board today, so I'm not going to read everything off, but one of the things we'll get out there is G&D put together a timeline of events that will be happening over the next several months with regards to the search update. So we'll get that posted online. It's updated as of today, where items that have been completed, items that are open, and things that are on the agenda for the future. One of the things we're working through is to start developing the committee beyond myself, Brenda, and Jonathan. They've made some recommendations that Jonathan, Brenda, and I need to look at and discuss together and decide how we want to proceed. They've given some good recommendations, some ideas to get the community involved as well. And then that's not a necessity to get done right this second, but we need in the next several weeks to a month to get that up and running so we can move forward with that part of the process. So more to come on that. But like I said, the admin will put up the timeline to kind of show what the schedule looks like, just so people can kind of look at it. And we'll go from there. Any questions from board members?
Just I would also mention the superintendent search survey that was started today. It's open from October 8th to the 15th. It's all over social media. I don't know if a parent square message went out today or not, but I'm assuming there will be, because I know that was something that Scott sent to us as well. Was that you expect to see some of that? So yeah, I think that's the only thing.
That's a good point. I think Jonathan confirmed he's sending that out. I forget what day it was. Was it tomorrow? I think he said Wednesday. So all right, perfect. So be on the lookout for that. And then obviously any questions, concerns from the community, please reach out to us, and reach out to either Jonathan, myself, or Brenda, who's more close at this point as part of the committee, and we'll get them answered for you. Thank you. All right, so next we have our discussion on the bond. So everyone has the one pager in front of them that the committee worked with the admin on to update and start for our discussion tonight. Very high level for people watching on TV who are in the audience. We took a lot of the feedback from our previous meeting that we had, and basically it's really boiled down to everything you see in that final column that says estimate, grand total $25.2 million, is everything to do with building structure, envelope, roof, doors, as mentioned. Anything that has to do with our building structures is what's in there. Everything else was taken off the list at this time. So which gets you down to the 25.2. So what I would say is, I know we had a lot of diverse discussion in the last couple of meetings. The big one was, I think there was a contingent of the board who was somewhere in the $20 million range. We're currently at 25.2 from the committee, and the recommendation from the committee and the administration. And actually, when you look at the list, I think it's whittled down to 15 projects. I would say the highest need projects that we have, and it all relates to building structure, envelope, roof, everything you can think of from that regard. So I will open up for discussion for the board on what your thoughts are on these key projects. If we're not comfortable with 25.2, I should say, if whoever is not comfortable with 25.2, I guess what I would say is let's discuss on this list what we can do, discuss as a group that doesn't make sense to that individual, and see if we can come to an agreement on how we want to move forward. But I'll just say that I think this list we have here is really good. It whittles it down to 15 core projects, easily identifiable, easy. I won't use educate the public. You can educate people on these 15 projects and explain why they're needed in pretty easy detail. It's very targeted. it's very, it just makes sense from that perspective. So I obviously support this at this number as we move forward. But I will obviously listen to what everybody else say, and we can, start the discussion. So if anyone wants to jump in, feel free. The only other thing I would add is, if there's one area, if 25 is not where some people are from a comfort level, the one area, in my opinion, that probably is a discussion point that we probably could take a deeper dive on is when you look at the banding at West Running Brook, there was like 4 different options when we first, three options that we first discussed. So it was granite, concrete, and brick. So if you go with brick, clearly that's, the cost brings the cost way down. Well, way down is relative, but it brings it down. We talked about granite at the time. Right now we have granite in there at 3.3 million, but that can be replaced with brick, and you could probably, I don't know the exact numbers, I'll leave that to Jane, but it's definitely a $500,000 minimum. But I will caution, a lot of these projects you're looking at, I don't see a way to defer any of these 15 projects outside of amending that one project, based on, I guess we could have a discussion on doors, but based on that, I'd be hard pressed to take anything off this list, but obviously we can have that discussion.
So looking at this list, I agree, it's really hard to take anything off of it. The doors, I guess I'd have to have a better understanding as to, the absolute necessity at this very time. What does make me nervous is getting voter support. We do keep hearing about all the other expenses that are coming down the line for us. We're also, I don't think, talking enough about other expenses. Just, when I made that earlier comment, it's more about other things in town. When we're looking for the school board, we do have Dairy Village that we need to figure out how we're going to repurpose that building. We talk about the SAU office, the maintenance building. So that's not to take away from any of these projects that I believe absolutely need to be done. I just want to make sure that when we do this, we're doing it right, because we cannot afford to have voters turn these projects down in March. And, what kind of situation are we in come March if this number is too high, and how do we fix that banding at West Running Brook? I know that a lot of people are in a situation where money is tight, and when we're talking about these increases, it's going to be hard for people to say yes. So I understand the importance of this, but I'm nervous if it's going to pass or not.
Jane, do you remember the difference? I don't, from brick, concrete, or granite, what the actual dollar amount was?
I don't, but if you give me 1 minute, I can look it up.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'll just throw out, I think it's 2, 2.5, and 3. Now the 3 is up to 3.25, but I don't know why I thought it was.
The original quote, obviously, there is an escalation in the number that's on here, but the original estimate was 2.3 million for brick, 2.6 million for concrete, and a little over 2.9 million for granite.
So about $600,000, give or take. Yeah. My concern with granite, obviously, is sourcing. So I think when last facilities committee, we decided that granite would be the best way forward, given its durability and lifespan and really doing it right. Sourcing granite obviously becomes a little bit tricky, when the bond passes, and then getting a contractor sourcing granite, it takes a little bit of time. I think that the best path forward would be to go for either brick or concrete, given that it's easier to source and we can take some money off the top of this bond. $600,000, becomes, it's 25.2, 24.6. It's a pretty big chunk. I mean, you could obviously break out what the tax impact would be, but when we're talking a higher number, and to Katie's point of people needing to be able to afford it, when we're $600,000 makes some sort of a difference there, and it's going to have an impact on the monthly, tax rate depending upon the household. So I would suggest to go to brick or concrete and save.
And I did ask this of Alan one of the many times that he was here. Is there, a functionality difference in going with granite or brick or concrete? Obviously, I'm sure that there's hesitation to go with concrete because that's what we currently have and that's what's a problem. But, if we have a company like Gale monitoring the installation of this, making sure that the mix of concrete is right, they wouldn't propose concrete or brick if they weren't viable options that were going to last. So
Buildings are built with concrete and brick currently without any issue.
So, yeah, I mean, that is an area where we could save, a good chunk of money, and I mean, really for granted, I mean, that was the original spec, Ed, but I mean, we know that this banding serves no functional purpose. It is purely aesthetic. So, if we can go with brick, it'll look fine. It'll be functional. That's a place where we can save a little money.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. I think that's a smaller issue compared to what we need to, I think, finalize tonight. I could sit here and make a case that we need to add more. I have a list of things here that I think that are needed. But I think we all understand the risk of not passing something. I mean, 5 of us on the board sat here last year and it didn't get passed. And so this is why we've come back and asked for less money, even though, again, 1 out of every 2 people that you talk to voted for a $37 million bond. So we are not confusing people with a new school. I think Ms. Thoreau's point is well taken. And I think we talked about this at previous meetings as far as getting out to preschools and trying to get the understanding of those people that do not have kids in school yet, that these are the needs of the buildings. I've said this all along, that I do believe if we are unified as a board, that we will have more buy-in from the public as well, and that would get us to the 60% mark, which I do not think is a very big task for us, considering all of the things that we heard last year, the confusion that was there, and I think the the support, the amount of support that we still receive for that, without the unification of everybody and everyone going full speed ahead. So that is where I am. I've said this time and time again that, if someone has a different viable solution, then I would support that if that is the will of the board. So that's where I stand.
I mean, I would just say a few things. Obviously, we've been talking about this, for many years now. It's been going on since long before most of us up here have been on this board. And, when you go back to, 2022, when this really started to get into high gear, the board brings in LaValle Brensinger. They do their detailed studies of the building, and they come up with a comprehensive plan to renovate all the buildings. And if you're looking at the 6 buildings that we have students in today, in 2022, they quoted almost $100 million to renovate those 6 buildings. So that was our starting point here. And, if you do the cost escalations to today, it's going to be way over $100 million. At the time, obviously, there's no way that, we're going to be able to spend that much money to renovate all these buildings. So that's when the board brought in Jobin to do these estimates for capital improvements, repairs to the buildings as they are. And that also later in 2022, Jobin Associates came up with a list that for these 6 buildings totaled $36.5 million, which again is going to be, if you do the cost escalation since 2022, is going to be far more than $36.5 million. And on top of that, when those numbers were put together, we didn't know how bad the issues were with the facade at West Running Brook and at South Range. You know, the West Running Brook issue wasn't even on anybody's radar. It wasn't even included in those estimates. The issue at South Range, you know, it hadn't been looked into. You know, there was a possibility that you only had to replace a few bricks and it would cost a few $1,000s, and that's not what it panned out to. So you have those two, what we're now considering major urgent projects, weren't even on the radar at that point. And then, you know, you go back to last year when we brought a $38.8 million bond. In a year when there were some pretty heavy headwinds working against that bond passing, it got over 50%. So I think when you look at that starting point in 2022 of over $100 million in renovations, we're now down over what's going to end up being 3 years of cost escalation to $25.2 million of major projects that are going to shore up a lot of the major problems that we have with our buildings. So if you ask me, this is a very reasonable proposal when you look at it in the larger picture of how we got here.
I agree that it's reasonable, but can people afford it? That's where my hesitation is.
I think what we have to continue to keep at the top of mind is, can we afford to not address these problems now? They're not going away. So next year they become more, the year after that they become more, the year after that they become more. This 25 becomes 40 in 2, 3, 4 years. Then we're hedging against the future to say, will things change, right? Does the climate change? Does the economy change? We can't predict the future. We've let this go and deferred and deferred and deferred and deferred and deferred. It's now time to kind of pay the piper on some of this stuff. And to Michael's point, this is bare minimum. I mean, we last year we were ambitious, right? We said, hey, we're going to have a new school on the ballot. We're going to replace 2 old buildings so we don't have to potentially put, at minimum 20 million into these 2, upwards of 40 or 50 for any type of renovation. That obviously failed, right? And we looked at addressing, if you look at last year's proposed warrant article, the 3-tranche system, we had significantly more, we have 16 now here. There was significantly more projects for a difference of $12 to $13 million based on last year's number. So yes, we have to be aware and understanding of what's happening with the economy and people's situations, but none of this is luxury. None of this is a want to have. None of this is a let's build a classroom and let's build an addition or let's upgrade a bunch of stuff in the building. This is literally securing the exterior of the buildings, keeping moisture out. We're replacing HVAC systems. We've already replaced HVAC systems, keeping the air quality that is happening by those new HVAC systems in the building, right, for efficiencies. So we can't be short-sighted in the sense of trying to get the bare minimum to get something passed, because we're going to be back next year. Another board or a future board is going to be back the year after that, trying to figure out how to at least get to almost a bare bones baseline minimum on some of these extremely deferred projects that should have been addressed 5, 10 or longer, 15 years ago. So we've got to understand that this is only going to get worse. And as we've seen over the last several years, it continues to increase, not by a few dollars, but by a significant amount. So if we don't do it this year, when does it get done, right? This 25, then next year it becomes 32. And oh, by the way, what comes in behind that? Because the list of projects that, Mr. Carden mentioned, we had 7 documents. That stuff's, a lot of it's getting done, as we see. Jeremy and team, they're addressing a lot of it, but a lot of it isn't getting done because we have to prioritize what is critical right now.
I think we really need to underscore how critical this is. I mean, the fact that, we're even sitting up here talking about this, talking about bonding $25 million, like to Jason's point, not for a new school or an addition or anything like that, just baseline repairs to keep the buildings habitable, $25 million. So to go for something lower, like we said, these problems are not going to go away. They're only going to get more expensive. And, if you go for a lower amount, you do fewer of these projects, you're just kicking them down the road. They're going to get more expensive. And, to the point of this being, what I've called a crisis, we shouldn't be needing to bond repairs. It should never have been allowed to get to this point. And, we need to now get to a point where we can make maintaining our buildings moving forward in the future manageable so that we don't have to bond this type of work and incur interest. We should be able to take care of our buildings on an annual basis through budgeting or through capital reserves. The idea that we're even at this point, it's a critical situation.
So, I guess what I would say is, if we were to make a motion, what I would recommend is some verbiage, say not to exceed 25 million or something like that, because if we do go with the brick on West Rhinebrook, we don't know the exact numbers, so I wouldn't pin us down to exact numbers tonight, but I'd like to have us have a vote on what that looks like, what our future looks like here on a warrant article. I guess the question is, can people support, I'll go one by one. Can people support a motion that says not to exceed $25 million? What about you, Jason?
How about I just bring a motion?
No.
If we want to have discussion, let's have discussion,
All right,
but.
Much trouble with this. So for the facilities committee from last year who was involved with the information about the granite, concrete, and brick, what is do you know what the real stability is? Because I get that it's a new contractor, it's going to be monitored, but we still know concrete breaks down, right? As does brick eventually. Do you have any more information? I guess I'm asking you, did you get any more detailed information about the ability of it to, I can't even think what I want to say. It's been a bad day, sorry. The viability of it to last how long? 25 years, 30 years, 50 years. We know the brick on Grinnell and at Hood is still good. We know that we had trouble with other brick. So I guess I'm asking, how do we know? And did you guys get any additional information about that material that is available now as compared to what was available 90 years ago?
So one of these guys.
And I know I'm not really making myself clear, and I'm really sorry.
No, you did. As Jason said earlier, I forget now, sorry. All three options were viable.
So the
Long-term.
issue was more in the mortar and what was used to, so the concrete, the issue there was the mix, right? Something was off with the chemical mix and it just wasn't correct. But the issue when we look at the brick and some of these other buildings is more or less the mortar versus the actual brick. So if you go to South Range, the brick is fine until water starts to seep in and then it's compromised and the brick breaks down. Alan said that any three of the options are viable options and completely good, paths forward. It's just I think what you're getting at, we know granite, granite it's granite, right? But I think when we talk about dollars, and Katie, if we can save $600,000 and we know that we've got an outfit like Gale, who I think at this point has done an outstanding job of presenting the information, disseminating, sharing it at board meetings. The reports are detailed, they're thorough. We've got to trust in the fact that they're the experts with this stuff, And when we sat in that meeting with Gail, and there was another young lady there who might have been part of that presentation, they know what they're talking about. This is what they do, right? They are subject matter experts when it comes to building envelopes, structural engineers. They're okay, and to me personally, yes, granite would be the ideal, but when we're talking about how do we at least save a few dollars, I would have confidence that Gail helping with this project, brick or concrete, is going to be a viable option moving forward. If it's $600,000 or $700,000, that's a significant number. Now, maybe to Jonathan's point, there's other things. Do you reallocate and say, hey, that $600,000 or $700,000 could potentially go to fire alarm system? So if we say the bond not to exceed 25, then you guys can go back in the committee and go, okay, well, if we've saved 700,000, does it make sense to maybe address some of the other larger issues, or does it make sense to reduce the total number, right? But I'm comfortable with any three of those options. I think Alan and Gail, knowing our situation, if they had concerns, the options they would have presented would have been concrete and granite if they were unsure of brick, right? We can't look back to when, however long West Running Brook was built and understand why, right? They can hypothesize and say it was this or was that, and we understand it might have been when they did the testing, it was some chemical stuff, but now, if they're managing it, just like the West Running Brook roof, right? We had ARM, they identified the roof drains and said, no, you have to correct this, right? So that's part of the process. We're paying them for that. They're going to help manage that aspect of that project to make sure it's done right. Their name's on that project, right? So I don't know if that answers your question, Brenda, if that's what you were getting at. Obviously, I get it, there's concern, right? Where we are now, but.
Right, and everything that's been done in the district forever, when it was contracted, it was believed that they were the experts, right? And they were doing the best job, and I'm not saying they weren't, right? Things happen, things get done a different way. Somebody thinks it's the best way, and it may not be. And I agree with you. I think Gail is amazing. They are an unbelievable contractor. They've given us unbelievable information that we can stand by, I believe. And I do really appreciate their presentations and all the information they've given us, and I do trust it. I'm just nervous.
And listen, if you said, hey, I prefer granite, I'm one of 6 here today or one of 7. If the board says we want to go with granite, then go with granite at the difference of that cost. I'm just, what we talked about is if we can save some money somewhere, we're not talking a difference of 100,000 or 50,000. It's, it's $500,000 plus.
I'm also nervous about the bottom line, and I expressed that at our last meeting. I have had a lot of people tell me I'm out of my mind with 20 since that last meeting. You need to go to 10 or 15. Even though I know that 10 doesn't get us anywhere, and 15 barely gets us anywhere, and 20 barely gets us anywhere. So, all of those things make me nervous.
10 doesn't cover South Range, right?
I realize that. I'm listening. I'm not saying that's what we should be doing. That's what's been coming to me from the community. I don't want something to be on the ballot and not get passed. I don't want that to happen. And I don't think it matters if I'm out there knocking on doors telling people you need to vote for this, and this is why, if they can't afford it. I don't. And I understand that too, because things are difficult for a lot of people. Look at the number of free and reduced lunch children we have. Look at the number of children who are able, and thank goodness, to participate in 68 hours of hunger. Like, those are the things that also matter, right? And it's hard. Do we know what the tax or the impact would be for a $25 million bond, Jane? Because it's not on the bottom of here.
I didn't have the bond bank do another scenario. I figured it's going to be somewhere in between what we had for the 20 and the 28. So if it was between the 20-year, the 20 million was 45 cents peak, and the 28 million was 64 cents peak. So somewhere in the 50-cent range. and then it goes down from there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, we could also, I only looked at 15-year bonds because you save a significant amount of money on interest, but you could certainly look at a 20-year bond.
And that was going to be my next question. And I don't like to spend a lot of money on interest, but when you think about the taxpayers, is it better to go with a larger bond that we could possibly, as we've done in the past, refinance at some point because it's less costly to the district?
The number was pretty significant last year. I don't remember off the top of my head when we decided to do, when we proposed 15. There was a significant
Oh, I'm sure it
savings in
is.
interest, obviously.
Mhm.
I guess the question I would ask too, when those conversations from anybody on the board have with constituents, when they say they can't, money's tight, obviously, I get it. What's our kind of, well, this is why, do you have the conversation, this is why we need it?
Absolutely.
And what's actually happening to our
Here
schools?
I travel with the Valley Report in my car. If you have a question about any school, I swear that's the truth. If you have a question, here it is. Here's what is needed. You can go to the website, but I've got it right here. I'll sit down with you and show it to you.
Yeah.
And I don't think people don't, in our community, I don't think people don't understand. I think they understand that we have needs. I think they didn't totally trust everything last year. But I also think we have to be cognizant of the cost. And I said this before, I would love to be able to go with the 43, whatever that number is, and fix everything. That would make me really happy, but we can't. It's not realistic.
I mean, what I'd say was, we cut this by a third.
I know.
From last year. That's a pretty big cut. I
don't see how we can do less than this. And I get what you're saying, Brenda, 100%. I don't want my taxes to go up either, right? No one wants their monthly payments to go up, but we've got to start to think short, medium, and long term, and some of this stuff helps the town, helps the district in the long run.
Well, what I would say is, from the committee meeting, I'll throw this out there. This number, if you take all the interior and exterior doors, that we added that after the meeting started. It was discussed and added, because originally this document was stripped down to 10 projects before the meeting started. Michael and myself, Katie, got a document showing the top 10. So from that meeting, I think the chimney thing, a small issue with the chimney at Grinnell, I believe it was added like $44,000. Then before the meeting ended, the exterior and interior doors were added. So I believe this number was, Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, 22 point something before we started the meeting. So I'm just saying that to keep that in the back of your minds. When we started the meeting last week, it was at 22 and a half. The exterior doors created that gap. I mean, the chimney is only 44,000. I shouldn't say only. It didn't make a huge difference, but the doors were the 3 million, I guess. I didn't think it was 3 million, but I guess it is. Added. So keep that in the back of your minds too, is a discussion. Because Katie brought doors up, and that was a good point, because we originally didn't have the doors on there when the meeting started at the committee level.
When we look at this list, I guess a couple of questions. Would we consider breaking this out to 2 bonds? Because there are certain items on here that would be, just from a safety standpoint, really terrible if they didn't pass. So for, maybe, with that suggestion, break it to the 2 bonds and really, really push for both, but at least we know that we can get those certain items taken care of. I understand how important these all are. I'm not trying to challenge that in any way. But just to ensure that those certain items that we absolutely cannot go any further, without making sure that those get passed. So possibly splitting that to the 2 bonds with the full board really promoting and really educating for both of them. Maybe that could get them both passed, and then there's nothing to worry about. But I am concerned with that number getting passed. And then where we could cut with the banding at West Running Brook, let's look at that number. And then, you know, so we added in those doors. I thought when I added that up, it was closer to $1 million, but can we take those off that list and bring that number down with that as well?
I think my opinion is breaking this into two bonds is a risk in the sense that now we complicate there's another thing to vote for. I think last year, hindsight, if we didn't have the school on the ballot, we probably would have passed the capital improvements. But because we had the capital improvements, a new school, there was so many things that if people aren't tuned in, then it's just a matter of, well, I thought I did this or I thought I did that. I personally, and we talked about this early on this year, I like the idea of a 3-tranche system because there's breaks in tax impact, so it helps in terms of how to spread these things out a little bit more long-term and only requiring the vote for one, but being able to still kind of spread out and let, them kind of prioritize what needs to be done in year one, and then what could be done in year two, and then what could be done in year three. And I think, Jane, we would get to 4, right? Or would we get to 5 if we did a 2-tranche system? We'd get to 5, right? Because in the third year, you would then take the other one. So in theory, not to say that we could necessarily push it out, but you could kind of go out to 5 years if that's something that people thought made sense. Because we thought it made sense last year, right? To go 3 tranches at 14, 15 million and be able to kind of spread that out over 7 years and really help to build out a long-term strategic project plan when it comes to the facilities. I think it becomes very confusing if how do I know what's what? If I'm looking at the ballot that day, I'm going, well, this is 10, this is this, which one's which? In my opinion, it becomes a little too confusing.
I don't love 2 bonds either. I agree. I think it would be confusing. We'll have a budget and a teacher's contract, and then we're asking people to choose between 4 items.
While they're trying to get in and out in 5 minutes.
Right.
Right.
But I agree, that we have things that really, safety things that need to be done.
So I'll say this, and I'm not saying I support this, but I'm just giving the picture. You can get this under 20 million if you stick to the roofs, the facade, HVAC. It's shorter to say what you take out. Stuff like the doors, windows, which I would think we need, obviously, but you can get this under 20 million by taking out windows, doors, and reducing the West Running Brook project to the brick. Those 3 things. I'm not saying I advocate for that. I'm just kind of throwing it out there as a conversation point if people are still concerned about 22.5, whatever, 23 million.
And the devil's advocate there, though, David, is when and how do we then address windows and doors, right?
I see all these things as kind of being linked too. If we're going to spend the money to seal up these buildings with a new roof and put in these HVAC systems, shouldn't we also be concerned with like the windows on some of these buildings I think are so old we don't actually know how old they are. So if we're going to spend all this money on the roof, on the HVAC system, we should spend that extra money to seal these buildings up and really realize that savings from, being able to, better control the climate within the buildings. And, that's also something that we, have a problem with. We don't have air conditioning. The buildings get very hot in the summer. And I'm sure having, 60-year-old windows and roofs with holes in it doesn't exactly help the situation.
I'm just playing devil's advocate, that's all. Just kind of putting everything out there on the table. Because clearly there's a lot of concern and apprehension, and we need to alleviate that somehow. And but we need to have a decision too. So I mean, we can talk as long as anybody wants, but I hesitate to say we're going in circles, and not hesitate, we are going in circles, and we kind of need to focus in and figure out how we want to move forward.
So no matter what number we do land on, I think that it's also going to be really important to share with the community what our plan is moving forward, as Michael had said, how we are going to be able to also, on a yearly basis, take care of our buildings so that we're not in this situation again. So I think we also need to get a plan around that so that we can be educating them on that at the same time so that they have more faith in the plan that we put forward.
Yeah, that goes without saying. I think we've been pretty upfront with that for a long time now. That's the plan to do that, and
Yeah, I mean, I'll
it's
keep
no, it's a
banging
non-stop.
that
It's a
drum
no,
over
yeah,
and over.
definitely.
Moving forward, we need to have a plan to, build up a permanent capital reserve for, for facilities investments. Investments in the facilities are constant. If we are able to, bond and complete these projects, there's still, again, that, the total list was 48.2 million. So there's still going to be, multi-million dollars worth of projects that are still on the table that are eventually going to have to be completed. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that we, try to do every year. That, with, gradually replacing flooring in classrooms and, ceiling treatments and parking lots and stuff like that. And, we really need to, kind of have a running list moving forward and, maintain that capital reserve. So every year we can, tick off a bunch of projects every summer and, have a source of funding for that doesn't involve bonding.
I'm going to move that we move forward with a bond not to exceed $25 million to address the projects that are outlined in the second column here. Third column, sorry. Thanks, Jonathan.
Okay, we have a first by Jason,
I'll second.
second by Jonathan. I'll open up for discussion. And I want to ask that we be very direct in our comments before we vote. And I'd like to get a clear understanding where everybody stands. We need to have that, I think, to show some cohesiveness here if we're good with that. And if we're not, then I would say we vote down this amendment if we're not cohesive on this. I firmly believe that, and I don't want to be 4-2 or whatever we are here tonight, or 3-3. Well, it could be 3-3, I guess. But I'm adamant, as best we can, to resolve this tonight in a way that we all can agree and move forward as a group to make this happen.
Can I say something, Mr. Chair? With all due respect to all of us up here, if we don't come to some sort of agreement tonight, we're not going to come to some sort of an agreement in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. So that's my thought. We've been talking about this for a long time. So
I agree. I'm just trying not to repeat the sins of prior. That's all. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but we need decisiveness from all 6 of us. That's what I'm asking. We need decisiveness, and we need to stand behind how we vote tonight and be confident in our vote and work together to make this happen. And that's expectation anytime you vote, obviously, but tonight in particular, I would really appreciate that as a group.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking for people to give where they stand, again, I would support that. I would echo Jason's sentiments that we do need to make a decision tonight. I also believe that when we vote, our votes matter, and the will of the board should be followed by every board member, regardless of which side of the vote you stand on. That is a decision that, again, the 6 of us in Wilbert, we all talk to people in the community. We all talk to different people. So we might have different perspectives, might have different opinions, might have different ideas. But when the board votes, that is the decision that the board as a whole makes, not any one of us individually. And it's my belief that we as a board, as a functional board, is to follow the will of the board, which is whatever that vote may be.
So every meeting leading up to this, we've had a decision, right? And now it's different. When we left here the last meeting, we agreed that 20 million was a good number, did we not?
What I'd say is we compromised to 20 million. So I think it's our job, the job of the committee was to, I guess the hope was if we were like 23 or 22, if maybe people would be okay with that. I think that was the hope. Not to change the conversation or expect different from people, but maybe if, 23 is something that we could all still support, even though it's not right at 20. I guess that was the thought coming into this meeting.
So, and I'm also trying to understand not to exceed 25. So what exactly what are we deciding tonight? Are we deciding on a number for a bond? What are we deciding?
Yes, we're deciding on what to move forward with based on this list. And the reason why I said not to exceed, because we don't have the exact numbers for this 3.2 if we go to brick. And I'm not going to delay another meeting just to recalculate something that we don't have at the fingertips right now. If you say not to exceed, the expectation of the administration is to update this $3,291,500 number to be brick, and then this number 25,225,750 will be under 25 million. That's why I said we should use those terms, because we don't have the exact figure at our fingertips, and we shouldn't expect Jane to provide that at our fingertips at this moment. But at the same time, I do not want to delay for another 2 weeks. Because as people have said tonight, we got to start figuring out how we're going to educate the public, and that takes time. And we can't be spinning our wheels on this part based on the discussions we've had, whatever, the last couple meetings. So that's why that's why I recommended the motion to say that rather than 24 point whatever, because I don't have the number right here in front of us because we made a change on the fly. That's the only reason.
I mean, I'm happy to withdraw if Jane has the exact figure or close enough.
We can't withdraw. There was a second on the floor. So we're in discussion, and then we have to take a vote.
I think by my count, after tonight, we have, 7 more meetings until March vote? Yeah, that's not even counting up to the public hearing, so it's less than that. So at some point, we need to have something that we're going to move forward with. I mean, we certainly can't say we haven't talked about this enough. Everybody should know enough about this at this point to be able to make a yes or no decision on the motion on the floor. For me personally, I think that we need to bond enough so that this is the one and only bond that we do for repairs. And I think that this 25 million number is going to get us there. Going for a lower number is just going to delay the projects that you take off the list. And it could mean down the line that, you still have so many projects on the table that you're not going to be able to get out from under them without having to bond again. And by delaying those projects into future years, the cost is going to escalate. They're going to end up costing more money in the long run. And if you have to, bond again in the future, that again is going to be another bond that you're incurring interest on. So, I think it's one thing to say, we're going to save money in the immediate, but we also need to think about what the long-term impacts are if we, go for a lower number now and just push these other projects down the road.
I guess what I'll say is, if we're not comfortable at the 25, what projects do we take off the list at this point? I don't know how other way to say it. If not, let's. I guess, Brenda, if we had to reduce this, what would you do?
You're not going to like this answer. I don't know, because
we get paid to be up. Well, we're here voted by the.
And I mean, that's
That we gotta make
That's
decisions.
unfair,
We gotta,
okay? I'm concerned about the buildings. I would like to do 40 million if that was possible, but it's not. I'm also concerned about the taxpayers and the things that they have to incur, not only us, but the town and the county. We're going to have a budget, we're going to have a teacher's contract, and we're going to have a warrant article that we want all to pass. When people call me and say, you're out of your mind with 20, where does that land, right? We have people here tonight, 2 people who spoke about 25. We have one who spoke about 10 and 14. Give people a choice. I did not have one single person call me and say, you need to go to that 25 or $30 million number, not one. I had young parents call me, I had former board members call me, I had senior citizens call me. I'm glad this is hysterical, but it's not. Because I want whatever we put on to pass, and I don't know what's going to pass. I don't know.
so I agree, I don't either, but what I would say is, I'll use myself as an example. If I land at a certain point, I come to the meeting and say, this is why I land here and this is how we're gonna get there. That's the minimum expectation of all of us up here. And I'm not doing that to chastise, it's just the reality of what we're tasked to do. Like, in my head, if I said, I'll give you an example. If I said, hey, all right, you know what? I've heard the voters, people, they haven't called me, but they did call me, and they said, and really, we really got to be at $15 million. The next thing I would do is I'd go to my desk and I would look at this list and I'd say, what can I do to get down to $15 million? And I'd do it. And then I'd come to the meeting and try to persuade the other 6 people to agree with me. That's the expectation of a board member that's elected by the people. And that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to have us do that, but nobody seems to want to budge or say anything. And I have to try to pry it out of people that's not my job isn't to pry things out of you guys. My job is to facilitate the meeting and have you guys come and give your thoughts. If you're at 18 million, that's fine. How do we get there? That's all I'm asking for. If you're at 15 million, fine. How do we get there? The committee came with this recommendation. If we don't like it, I get the decisions is not easy. It's freaking hard. I get it. I've been doing this for 3 years, and every decision I got to make has been, crazy because of what we've had to deal with the last 20 years. But you know what? I sit up here and I make those decisions every single freaking meeting. I put my neck out there every time, and I get more slack than any of you guys know. I get beat up because I'm vocal, and I make decisions. I come to meetings prepared. People don't like me because I try to hold people accountable, and I'm outspoken. But at least I come prepared. I'm just saying, at least I come with what I know what I want to do and try to convince you guys the best I can. That's the expectation. That's why people voted for me, and that's what I try to do. I'm trying to fix a massive problem here. My first meeting I came to the board, Michael said the number was $130-something million as a newly elected board member 2.5 years ago. And we're at 22 or 24, which I'm okay with. But I need you guys to stand up, come to a decisive decision, and let's move on, because I can't do this circle anymore. Tonight, anyways. We'll have other things we can do circles on, but not tonight.
Call the vote.
Jason?
Yes.
Katie?
No.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Brenda?
I don't know how to vote. I'm sorry. And I know that you're mad.
I'm not mad.
I am getting looks.
I'm not mad.
No, not from you.
I'm just
This is
trying to
difficult.
facilitate this meeting, and
I
I'm
understand that.
trying to get us to move forward. That's my job as the chair of this board. All right, so
It's a 3-answer question. Yes, no, or abstain.
yeah.
I'll vote yes. you go. You got my vote.
It's not there you go, it's.
Yeah, it is. There you go. It's done.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 5-1. No. Yes, please. Take a 5-minute recess.
Use the restroom.
I don't know what they did.
right, good evening. So moving on, we are at the Pinkin Academy Financial Audit Reports. Page report. Oh, I'm not even on, excuse me, sorry, good evening, welcome back. Moving on to Pinkin Academy Financial Report. So Jane, can you give us an update on that? And I do have a few questions when you're done.
Sure. I'm not sure how many from their audit I can answer for you, but I'll do the best I can. This is usually something that we get at the end of each of their fiscal years. They provide us their audit from their treasurer with a summary of areas where they had their actuals and how much they spent. Right now, they have a surplus. There's a credit coming back to the Derry School District, and that will be a credit when we get our first bill. I haven't received the October billing yet, but when I do, that will be actually part of their bill, and they'll take $128,508.75 will be a credit on the first bill. So what questions did you have?
It's not really a question, it's just really an ask. When you get a chance, can you ask them for a copy of the management letter and any findings they had? I'd like to see the verbiage on that. Just like we have in ours, I'd like to see what the auditors thought of that and whatever findings and they had, if any. Maybe they don't have any, may not, but I'd be interested to see that. Thank you.
I will certainly ask for that. Sure. Any other questions on the?
Is this just an average amount that we usually receive back in a credit, or is this a higher amount, higher than normal?
We've had a range. Sometimes it's in the 20,000 to a little over 100, and each year it fluctuates between.
Not out of the norm.
No.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Jane. I guess you're still up with your update.
Okay. First, I would like to start off. I just want to give an update with maintenance with regards to, we used to use School Dude for all of our maintenance recording. Now we use a system called FMX, and that's been really nice because now we have one portal where all of the tech requests are done through FMX, all of the rentals and all of the maintenance requests are done through FMX. And I thought that the information would be valuable tonight to let you know. Jeremy did a date range from July 1, which, as you know, our fiscal year, everything is done by fiscal year for us. So as of July 1, the maintenance department completed 706 maintenance requests. They have 57 maintenance requests that are pending resolution, so they're working on them. And they have 89 that are pending approval. So there's a lot of work that was done over the summer of anything ranging from window repairs, shade repair, replacement, door lock replacements, doors being repaired or replaced, faucets not working, toilets not working. The list goes on and on. We have a routing system, so I see every maintenance request that comes over, and then it also, of course, goes to Jeremy, and then they route it to whichever maintenance technician. We have some that, they're really good at a certain thing, so we route those to them. Maybe it's HVAC. We have others that are really good at repairing electrical or plumbing. So they worked really, really hard this summer, as they do all through the year. So I want to make sure I thank Jeremy for the outstanding work with maintenance. I'd like to turn our attention to food service. I happen to be working on approving free and reduced applications today, so I wanted to ask Christina how we're doing as far as a comparison from one year to the next. But I wanted to just highlight that and reiterate that if a household has not sent in their 24-25 application, there's only a 30-day grace period for last year's application, which expires October 10th. So in 2 days, if you were approved for free and reduced last year and you have not reapplied, your status is automatically going to go to paid as of Thursday. So we encourage all of the families that were on free and reduced last year that have not reapplied. We have 95 households who have not reapplied. Christina and her administrative assistant, they have been making phone calls, they're sending home notifications, but hopefully we can get 95 more households to reapply and hopefully are approved for free or reduced, because then it's going to drop them to a paid status, and we don't want that to happen if they really do qualify. And then they will start accruing a balance after the 10th. Anything that their child orders after the 10th is now going to be the financial responsibility. And this is also receiving as of October 2024, the direct certifications from the state. Let me just tell you,
And can I ask a quick question on that? Is that a hard stop? So say, I know that I'm sure there's been plenty of communication that's gone out and people have had the opportunity, but just if they haven't, for one reason or the next, October 10th comes and goes, are they able to then go back and reapply, or that's it?
well, they
End of the
can go
line?
back and reapply, but their status until it gets approved again, there may be 3 or 4 days, is
Where they're going to
that
accrue.
yeah.
Yep.
And the 10th is not a Derry School District hard date. That's the hard date from the state.
Okay, thank you.
So that's why we're trying to get as many as we can. I went through a lot of applications today, and a lot of approvals, some approved for reduced, and few denials. So the people who are still applying, it's the reach out that we want, the ones that are getting approved. You know, for me, when I'm going through them and looking at them, and I'm wondering why are they applying in October? You know, you wish that they had applied in September too, because that responsibility was on them from September, and they probably just, you know, either they didn't know about it, or they just didn't get around to it, or their financial circumstances have certainly changed, right? I have a number of people who are putting down 0 income, and Christina, particularly when someone puts down a 0 income, she follows up with an email to make sure that, you know, maybe they didn't understand the application, or weren't sure at the time when they submitted the application, because obviously 0 income, if they're not receiving Social Security or unemployment or something, typically everybody has some source of an income. But we've had quite a few with no income, and when she follows up with an email, they confirm that they don't have an income. And it's been for a variety of reasons. Self-employed, businesses are going out of business. Self-employed and not able to draw a check. People who have just been laid off, have no income coming in yet. So there's been a variety of people who have had illnesses, been a real variety of people with no income. So we would encourage families, situations change daily, weekly, monthly. There's no time limit on when people can apply for free and reduced. You can apply up until June. So if your situation changes where you do have a job change, that you're earning less money than you didn't qualify before, and your status changes, or your living situation changes. If there are more family members who have moved into your home, that changes your status on whether you're qualified for free or reduced. So all of those things, those components matter when people are filling out those applications. But what I wanted to let you know is, as of right now, what we have for free and reduced. So at East Derry, and for the next month, I'm going to have this all in writing. I'll do a spreadsheet with it all, but she just gave it to me today, so I want to make sure, because I think the numbers are important. Right now, East Derry has 45 free students, 12 students on reduced, and 336 paid students. Barca has 97 free, 19 reduced, and 382 on paid. Gilbert H. Hood and next charter school combined, 143 free, 47 reduced, 593 unpaid. Grinnell, 76 free, 28 reduced, 241 paid. South Range, 75 free, 25 reduced, 237 paid. West Running Brook, 130 free, 41 reduced, and 480 paid. So when you combine free and reduced together, our largest amount on free and reduced right now is Gilbert H. Hood and Next combined at 190, and followed by West Running Brook is 171, followed by Barca, then Grinnell, South Range, and East Derry.
Jane, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you know, do you track how many families that is? So you could have a child in 3 schools, and everybody would be on free and reduced. I'm just wondering how many actual Derry families that is, Derry School District families that is, as compared to the number.
Sure. Christina may have it broken down by family, but those are just individual students.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure. Any questions on food service or maintenance? As people know, we are preparing for the first actual budget presentations. We had one last week, but that was really just an introduction, sort of a School District Budget 101. And on October 29th, which is our next budget meeting, we'll be presenting actual numbers. We will have our health insurance rate. We already got the new rates for New Hampshire retirement, so we will have those. And we will try to get that out a week ahead of time for people. And it's televised meeting, or people, if they want to watch, they can come in person at West Running Brook.
Jane, will we have our adequacy numbers by that meeting?
Adequacy for 25-26? I will check. We should have an estimate.
Okay, it'd be helpful.
We had the one for the 24-25, actually is level funded from.
Is it level?
23-24.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jane, if you had to guess, well, I'd say guess, if you had to estimate how many families should be on free and reduced aren't, because for whatever variety of reasons, is that a material number, you think?
Is it a material number that there are people who probably qualify who haven't applied?
Yeah.
Probably a good number. Yeah.
It's just so people don't know, like, it's $2,100, right? The reimbursement for the district?
Oh, through adequacy?
Yeah.
It's somewhere around that. I don't.
Yeah, so I mean, I know we talked about before, and I know one of the big things they're working on is opt-in, opt-out from Medicaid perspective to auto-enroll. So it's really important to understand, every 100 people, every 10 people is $20,000. Like, I don't know what the number is, but it's definitely something that we need and should be looked at, obviously.
Right, and we've said it before, a family filling out a free and reduced application, and if they are approved, yes, of course, huge benefit for the family, for a benefit that's definitely needed in their household based on their income, but it's also financially beneficial for the district. Like you said, we receive extra inadequacy. We receive more funding in federal grants. So there are a lot of things that are financial are based on our free and reduced numbers. So again, I try to stress it as much as possible, the confidentiality around who sees the actual application. It's very confidential. Your child goes through the lunch line with the same lunch card as everybody else. Your child does not know they're on free. They don't know they're on reduced. So we encourage, if people want to reach out to Christina to have a confidential conversation, she's more than happy to help out. You don't have to send the paper application. The electronic application goes directly to Christina. Does not go through the school or anybody else. So.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Joe, you're up with policies. first reading, I guess, at this point.
All right, thank you. So there are 4 policies that were in the packet. 2 of them are new policies and 2 are some revisions. I'll just very briefly kind of lay them out, and then if people have questions, we can go for it. So the first policy on the list is therapy animals in school. This is a new policy. Just a little bit of context, we do have a therapy dog at Ernest P. Barca. I think many of you were here and saw the presentation. I think it was last year. However, we don't have a therapy animals in school policy. Fortunately for us, the New Hampshire School Boards Association published a recommended policy in May of this year. So we adopted the vast majority of what's in this policy are New Hampshire School Boards Association language directly from their attorneys. We did make some specific changes. In some cases, we elevated the sort of restrictions or rules and regulations. In other senses, we created some flexibility that we thought was, material and important for our program. But most importantly, I think, is we took a lot of time to talk with Karen Allard and Megan Metz, who are the 2 school counselors at Ernest P. Barca, who have dedicated a lot of time and energy effort in taking this very seriously. So if any of you've ever had a chance to go to Barca and meet their therapy dog, it's a pretty wonderful experience over there. So for that reason, I think Karen and Megan really wanted to do this right. So big thanks to them for participating in our discussion. I don't know if you want to talk about each policy individually or just me give you the quick overviews and then you have questions. I'll just go through. Okay. The second policy that's on your list is school board meeting rules of procedure and order. This is a policy that I think you guys discussed perhaps when you met with the attorney from New Hampshire School Boards Association last year. It's been kind of in our draft format since then. This is language that was taken verbatim from the New Hampshire School Boards Association's recommended policy. We did have a discussion with the attorney from New Hampshire School Boards Association in real time during the policy committee meeting, just to get clarification. There are a lot of procedural things in this policy, and the clarification we got from Will was they kind of need to be in there because unlike administrative procedures, which typically don't show up in policies because those are at the discretion of the superintendent and the administrators, these are board procedures and there is no other place to put those procedures. So they kind of have to live in a policy so that they are explicit. So that was the interpretation that we got from New Hampshire School Boards Association. The third policy is a transportation policy. It is incredibly minor. I think we may have changed 2 or 3 words is what Cliff is telling me. Just to clarify kind of the first sentence that we're talking about transportation between home and school. So that was really the only change on that policy. And then the fourth policy is rental and service charges. There were a lot of changes to this policy, both updating of some pricing, some sort of clarification of some procedural steps that we take in kind of renting out our facilities to both kind of internal groups in our district and external groups. So there's a lot of charts and numbers there, so you might want to take a look at that. Those are the 4 policies. If anybody has specific questions, there are people here that could probably answer them.
I just have a request. When we make edits, is there a possibility to get the most current policy and then maybe a side-by-side or what the edits are being made just to make it easier to find those changes? It's just a request.
Yeah, absolutely. For the 2 revised policies, we can certainly give you the existing copies. Yep, we'll send those out to all board members.
On transportation, did you guys have any conversation on item number 1 on the first section?
No, the only addition that we were bringing here was the home to school addition at the top, because there were a lot of principals and directors that were wanting that portion added to it.
So what I would recommend is, given our current situation that we find ourselves in, there should be a robust discussion on item number 1 in that policy discussion. And I think in our budget discussions as well, obviously, I think I mentioned that at our last meeting. I think the time has come that we need to discuss that and figure out, I've heard a lot of concern about taxpayers and taxes and all that tonight. And I think this is one area of discussion that we need to have in a real debate, well, not here tonight, obviously, but in a future forum, most probably in a budget meeting, obviously. But, you know, what I'm hearing tonight is that people are hearing from the constituents that taxes are high. They're concerned about the budget. They're concerned about the teacher's contract, and they're concerned about our warrant article. So with that being said, we need to look at everything that affects our budget and how we can be more efficient when it comes to our budget. And I understand number 1 is a tough one. I should just read it because some people understand what I'm talking about. So that would probably help. So the state of New Hampshire requires 2 miles us to bus anybody within. Outside of.
Outside of 2 miles and only K through 8, we're not required to provide high school busing.
Right. So in our policy right now is we have 1 mile. So there just needs to be a discussion. I'm not saying in one way or another. I think when we talk about finances and people hurting in our community, everything needs to be on the table, and we need to have a discussion of everything. We can't cherry pick on what to discuss, what we can't discuss, because this is one area that, I don't know if we save money or not, or if it's even worth doing, but we need to make that priority to discuss it. All right, moving on. Personnel.
No personnel tonight.
All right, you're up with your update then, Austin.
Okay. Last winter, one of our West Running Brook Middle School assistant principals, Dennis Mayer, was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. He has been through chemotherapy and radiation treatments and was able to ring the bell at the end of his last treatment. The prognosis is, The prognosis is very good, and we are also excited for Dennis to return sometime, hopefully before the end of this month. Dennis has been communicating with Kim Conan and her curriculum department personnel, working online and sometimes working at home just on his own. We look forward to welcoming him back in person so he can continue to work with the staff, students, and families in our district. Congratulations, Dennis. Last week, the Derry Village Rotary held its annual major club fundraiser. The title of the fundraiser is the Dr. John H. Moody Memorial Golf Tournament, named after one of Derry Cooperative School District's former superintendents. Dr. Moody was not just active as our superintendent for the school system, but a major volunteer throughout the town of Derry. I joined the Derry Village Rotary 3 years ago as a school district representative, and I was sponsored by Dr. Moody, who was a very important mentor for me over the years. We all miss him so, wish Judy, his wife, and the rest of the Moody family the best of memories, and we thank John for the legacy that he has left behind. East Derry Memorial Elementary School community came together in a remarkable way for a very successful fundraiser during their Owl Prowl event last Friday. The money raised will be instrumental in supporting the fun and enriching learning experience that the PTA has planned for the students throughout the year. One of the highlights of the event was the students chalking the walk the day before the Owl Prowl. The words of praise and inspiration they created brought smiles to everyone's faces as they walked around the track 3 times. I would like to extend a big shout out to the East Derry Memorial Elementary School PTA, who organized and facilitated the event, the administration, the dedicated staff, and the amazing students and all the great families who contributed to the success of this wonderful event. Recently, I received an invitation to attend Julie Hall's Multimedia Productions class on Wednesday, September 25th at West Runningbrook. The purpose of my visit was to be interviewed by her students for the paper they will publish at the end of this trimester. The students were very well prepared by Ms. Hall with their questions written out. Everyone spoke up professionally, loudly, and clearly. Some students even asked some follow-up questions that came to their mind from the answers I gave. I want to thank Julie Hall and her students for inviting me to their class and for interviewing me. I cannot wait to see the publication once it is done because I know the students will do their best work under the excellent leadership of their teacher, Julie Hall. We love our volunteers and we want them, our students and our families and all staff members, to be safe. Therefore, we require all volunteers to be fingerprinted. If you have the availability between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., please call the SAU 603-432-1210 and make an appointment to come into the Human Resource Office so they can get your fingerprints and you can begin to volunteer. If you are not available during regular working hours, Human Resource has planned an event for volunteer fingerprinting during an evening appointment session. This will be held at the SAU Central Office, 18 South Main Street, right here in Derry. The day, date, and time of the free fingerprinting is 1 week from tomorrow, Wednesday, October 16th, from 4 to 8 p.m. Thank you to Kathy Kennedy, Human Resource Director, and Administrative Assistant Mary Ellen Tagliatella for their time and effort to host this evening event. Once again, please call the Human Resource Office at 603-432-1210 to reserve your spot. We just had a fantastic volunteer from South Range today who got her certificate, and thanks from the entire school for all the things that she does. We love our volunteers. And please, if you have some time, think of getting fingerprinted and getting on board. Thank you very much.
I'd say about the fingerprinting too is even if you think you're, I'm not going to volunteer until field day or something in June, it takes quite a bit of time to get that background check, and then you need to do the vector training. So if you can knock it out now early in the year, I'd recommend it.
All right. Thank you, Austin. FYIs, we have the enrollment report in our packet. Just a quick thing. If I'm reading this right, we're down 200 students from this time last year, excuse me? I mean, it seems like, most of it's Pinkerton, I say, but that was kind of jumped out at me. The October column there, down, yeah, okay. Just fix the September column when you get a chance for next meeting. All right, committees, we got the manifest.
I'll move to approve the manifest for a grand total of $7,895,208.11. Of that, general payroll consists of $4,031,113.86, and general expenses consisting of $3,864,094.25.
Second.
First by Jonathan, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes 6-0. Any other committee updates? I know curriculum ed, we obviously did facilities. Any updates on curriculum that we want to discuss tonight?
So it looks like, Joe, Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some dates on the calendar for upcoming grade and report presentations, kind of some trainings to help parents understand and communicate. And so that was kind of the big thing that we discussed when we met last week, and the big takeaway. So thank you for that. And I think, I don't know if you want to kind of give a high level, what folks can expect or what they should plan to see, the dates.
Yeah, thank you. So we put out in that newsletter that went out last week, Wednesday, the 16th. So maybe you're going to go get fingerprinted and then you can come to the grading presentation. From 6:30 to 8, we'll be at Gilbert H. Hood Middle School talking a little bit about some of the grading practices, report card, some changes that have gone on. So that session, and that's open to anybody. We will put that out to everybody. We're going to do multiple sessions to try to make it a little bit easier. So that one's at Gilbert H. Hood on Wednesday, October 16th. And then we also scheduled an event at West Running Brook Intermediate School for Monday, October 28th, again at 6:30 p.m. We will make sure to send out reminders to people as it gets a little bit closer to those as well. Well, I guess the 16th is a week from tomorrow, so that's coming up. But then we'll send out another reminder about the 28th as well. We included some information in the newsletter that kind of some overviews of some changes. Some of our principals asked us to put together kind of a flyer or a pretty short but more detailed than can go into a newsletter explanation of some of these things, including some pictures of the academic scales and the care scale. So I sent that out to principals. I want to say it was yesterday. I can't remember. So principals will be sending that out to their families just to kind of also make sure that people see that information.
Yeah, I appreciate the newsletter. I think where I think the one theme that we talked about was, making progress, not expecting perfection. And this is a transition that we've made a few years ago. And so I think, continuing to see through the competency-based grading and, we'll tweak it when we need to, I think is great. So I appreciate that. I know we also talked about kind of homework versus practice and potentially being able to utilize Edmentum and looking at that. So continue conversations around, how we can improve student outcomes and balancing, what the best approach is, and, making sure that, big theme of that was also communication. And so it's great to see those meetings on the board, on the books, as well as the newsletter, and then, what we do with those meetings after the fact, and the continued constant communication, because we do know for pretty much every parent, it's brand new, especially if you're new, if your child's just entering, kindergarten, first grade, or you've moved here. Competency-based grading is a pretty new idea for many families. So, yeah, great meeting.
Cliff, did you have a transportation update for us?
Well, before I say anything, I want to preface, it's not where we want to be. It's not desirable. It's not acceptable. I understand that. Today we had our best day. All the buses were there by 2:32 and out the door, or out on the road by 2:32, which we started at 2:44 and it's gotten down to 2:32. On this week we have a very large consolidation that's going to happen on Monday because it's so large. In fact, I'd just like to read this to you because when you're thinking about how difficult this is, and I've changed the bus numbers to letters because I don't want this going out yet because we haven't finalized it. We're eliminating bus X from Pinkerton. This will be loaded onto 3 other buses, A, B, and Y. After that is complete, we will be eliminating bus R at Hood, which will go mostly on bus X with a couple of kids going on to C. Some kids on C will be moved to M to keep it short enough to get to Pinkerton. We will then be looking to see what we can do with Pinkerton R to take on more, as it will be there for regular dismissal. So you've got so many moving parts here, but that in itself will bring a bus to Pinkerton at 157. So now we'll have 2 buses there at 157, and with that we can consolidate another bus onto that, which is almost 3 buses at 157. So it's moves like that that take a while to figure it out, but once you do it, there's a huge impact, and so that's the kind of stuff that we're looking into now. If the board wants to consider some out-of-the-box ideas, last year when I first brought the idea to the board of the buses going from Gilbert Hood to West Running Brook and doubling up, there's 2 schools, we didn't want to do that, but we have buses that are running identical routes. They're picking up the siblings on one bus and the other siblings on the other bus. And if we consolidated those two buses into one, started at Gilbert Hood and went over to West, picked them up, and then went out and did their run, that's another bus that could be going to Pinkerton as a full bus, and then you consolidate two buses at Pinkerton there, and now you've upped it that many more. Those are just things that we're thinking of, and if the board wants to talk about those kind of things, we'll entertain all those kind of scenarios to get it down. We understand how hard this is and how frustrating it is for parents, and they weren't working on it last week while I was gone, so I reignited the fire, and now we've got this big move that's happening, and so just want to say it is moving. It's slow, but it is moving. Any questions?
I would just add a comment that I think everything should be on the table, out of the box. We've got to hear it all, right? And I think we heard it last year or heard it at the beginning of the year, but what I would ask, you and the committee is to kind of revisit every option and then maybe bring that back to the full board for discussion so we understand, when you say all the bus letters, what is the anticipated or expected, right? We should have a ballpark to say, hey, we're going to be able to cut 10 or 15 or 12 minutes based on this, or 10 to 15 or 15 to 20, whatever that number is. But also when you say out of the box, let's hear it, right? And understand what it might look like, whether it's combining buses. I know in my neighborhood, my daughter's bus comes, and then literally a minute later, the West Running Brook bus is driving up the road. My daughter's stop is a little further down the street, but it's literally sometimes probably passes, and I don't think the buses are full. So I would like to know what that means from a cost standpoint, from a ride time standpoint, from a capacity standpoint, efficiency. I mean, that seems silly, right? To have two buses crossing that maybe are at half capacity. So I would like to hear all of the options and have that conversation, because I think we're at that point now where we're hearing folks saying, hey, the bus is leaving at this time, or my kid's riding this long, or it's continuing. So something has to give, right? And we, this didn't happen by chance. We got here by reason, right? This was driven by, many different factors. So I think everything has to be on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that, this, the three-tier plan is not working out the way that we thought it would. When this was originally proposed in April and when we all agreed on it, I mean, first of all, it's important to remember that we agreed upon this plan after the budget had failed.
Yep.
This plan was proposed, we always knew that the buses would be coming later at Pinkerton, but at the time, I know it was an estimate, but we were told that buses would be pulling into Pinkerton at 2:10 to 2:15, pulling out by 2:20. We're obviously, we're still not close to that. I don't know that there's anything that we could ever do to get close to that under a three-tier system. But, we're doing the best that we can. And, so the reason that we were hesitating about going with the two-tier system was because of the ride times. And I think that is, would probably be preferable to go back to that at this point, but we are where we are. If you can consolidate buses, that are running, the same route to Hood and West Running Brook, I would say absolutely everything's got to be on the table. I mean, that was always the plan. I mean, going back to when you guys originally proposed restructuring, going back multiple years now, the plan was for combined 5 through 8 buses. That's, I would be absolutely fine with that. It doesn't make any sense that we're running 2 buses up the, back to back up the same street, and if it helps to, consolidate buses in that way, that's got to be on the table.
I would say if the board wanted to do that, a sooner resolution to that so that they can start getting that done and we can start moving forward with that kind of thing. The quicker you make that decision, because they've already started exploring those types of things. I yesterday asked them, can you find 3 identical routes between the 2 schools, or 3 very close routes that we could combine? And they were ready to start looking at that stuff.
So Cliff, when could the board expect to have all the information we would need to have discussion and dialogue and then potentially change direction?
By the next meeting.
Cliff, is that enough time to see how this new consolidation of the ABC buses is going to impact? I'm only asking, and I understand all of this of ride time, money, buses, bus drivers, all of that. But I'm concerned that it's another change for children who've made a change already. And is it better to wait till next year to change the middle school and intermediate school bus? And I don't know the answer to that, but it takes a couple of weeks to get into the system that you implement when you consolidate and understand how it's going to work, correct? I mean, it doesn't happen immediate.
When we offer like a system like what I just described to you, we do that one at a time so that we make sure this thing is going to work. But on one of those, if we were consolidating a Gilbert Hood bus and a West Runningbrook bus that were essentially running the same route, and we found two of those routes, we could do them simultaneously. I'm not even talking about doing the whole school. I'm only talking about a couple of routes that are very similar that we would experiment with for this year. And then for next year, if it's working well, then replicate that model for the entire system. That would be my preference, is to start with a few routes, enough that we could alleviate the Pinkerton problem this year, and then re-examine the whole system for next year.
Okay, thank you.
What's interesting too is the three other districts that have a 5, 6, and 7, 8, they all do their buses differently. You know, Bedford does separate 5, 6, 7, 8 buses. Then Wyndham does combined 5, 8 buses. And then I think Merrimack does separate 5, 6 buses, but then they do combined 7, 12 buses. So, you know, I mean, there's many different ways to do it. And I mean, I know, you know, for me growing up, when I was in elementary school, I rode a K6 bus, and then I rode a 612 bus.
Yeah, and you were in New York.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
I do, I would like to see the process play out a little bit longer, because we knew this was going to take a certain number of weeks, and see what we get those times down to. And then I do believe next would be to get the subcommittee together and say, we've reached our peak, this is where we're at, this is what the times are, this is the best that we're going to do in the 3-tier system, so that we'll know where it's at once you get through all these A, B, C, Ds and so forth, and X's and M's and all that. And then we can bring this to the subcommittee and say, okay, this is where we're at, and see how we feel about that new status quo, and see if we have to make some decisions beyond that, whether or not it's going to be for this year, or whether or not we've got to plan for next year, or both.
So to that point, Austin, do you think it makes sense to run some of this stuff in parallel, right? Maybe because it's going to take time for Cliff to get the information, convene the subcommittee, you guys talk through some stuff, and it might not necessarily be to bring a recommendation, but more informational. And you say, hey, we're going to bring this information. We've still got another week or two that we'd like to see the other stuff play out. But maybe by the next meeting, we'll know we're happy with the way the progress is. We're going to hold for now, or our recommendation is to hold, or we think we're going to need to make a change. Because my concern is if you wait the couple of weeks, then get the information, then convene the subcommittee, then bring it, you could be a month or 2 months out, and if it's not working, now we're kind of behind. I think we've got to be a little proactive here, given the situation. And I'm not trying to create a bunch of extra work, but it should run in parallel. That way, if something, once you determine it's not working, time to pull the ripcord, right? And shift to what the next plan, right? Or the next action might be. And I think we've got to be able to kind of keep that time, not the downtime, but the time it takes for us to pivot should be as small as possible. And if you do all that stuff in parallel and the board has the information, then it's easier to just make a decision.
And Jason, to your point, that's exactly what I've been telling First Student to do, is to be working on both of these at the same time, so that I told them, I said, right now I don't have board approval for you to combine schools, and so I need to have you doing the ones that we can do right now and get the most out of those, but I want you to be doing this as well, so that if it isn't working, I can take that as well. So your point is well taken, and that's the direction that we're already heading down.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Along with your point is maybe we can look to schedule the week before, 2 weeks from now, or a week and a half from now, have a subcommittee meeting that, towards the end of that week prior to the next school board meeting.
Given, I mean, it's so fluid that I think it has to be part of the conversation at a regular cadence. That way, changes can happen sooner rather than later once you've identified that.
Yeah, I think it's important to be planning for the next possible change now, even if we're not ready to implement it, because, when we see where we're going with what you're doing right now, if it's not getting to where we want it to be, we want to be ready to roll on that next set of changes and not have to worry about, the planning aspects, again, because it's October 8th, we've been in school here for a month and a half. At what point, if, we're taking these incremental steps, when's it going to be when we, when we finally done everything that we can do?
All right, is there any other committees that met that would like to give an update? No? Any other business by any board, anyone? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First by Jason. Second by Jonathan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 6-0. Have a good night, everyone.